Hello and welcome to the Meditation Conversation. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and today I'm joined by Michael Massey again. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Kara. Great to be here once again.
Yeah, it's always great to have you here. And the last many times that we've been together, we have been in the same room. Today we're back on Zoom, so it's like old times.
It's like old times. We do this about every 6 months or so. We like, okay, let's do a throwback episode.
Right. Yeah. There's a little bit of a lag. The technology's not behaving great. We'll see how we get on. Okay. So here we are. It is mid-December 2021. And so we're recording this right in the thick of heightened energy influxes. We had the 1212 gateway, and the energy just keeps coming. Really beautiful gifts that are part of this time. And so Michael and I wanted to create a kind of a Christmassy, kind of uplifting episode, and kind of focus on blessings for this topic. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Michael. What can you share with us in the realm of blessings and miracles and all those delicious spices?
Thank you, Kara, and welcome everyone. And so Kara didn't quite cover that the topic is explicitly blessings and miracles. Bam!
Didn't I say that? Just wasn't that like the last thing I said?
I know, but you didn't throw in the bam.
Oh, bam.
Blessings and miracles, bam.
Oh,
yeah.
Darn it. Okay. Bam. Well, you did it.
Okay. I had to bring the bam.
Okay.
And certainly, this time of year is hopefully, it's everyone is getting into the so-called spirit of Christmas, which is giving and being able to bless those around us in creative ways. And so I thought it was kind of appropriate we could talk about this today. And it's I got one story in mind. I don't think I've shared this on a podcast before, but I've shared it a number of times, and so maybe I have. And this is just a story of what I call one of the best 3 meals I've ever had in my life. And this happened in Hawaii. Have I shared this on a podcast?
Yes, you have. I want either the first or second. I think it was the second podcast.
Okay. Can I tell it again?
Okay.
All right.
Do you need to do a memory wipe for anybody who has listened to all of your?
Yes, this is brand new.
Yes, yeah. Some Jedi stuff there.
Yes. I did a Jedi hand wave thing so that, and this goes back to 2013, and I had gone to Hawaii, and I'd started off on the big island of Hawaii, and I got this what do you call it? You got you know, you get an initiative to do something, or I don't know.
Bee in your
And
bonnet?
yes, something. And I got motivated that I was going to walk around the big island of Hawaii, 220 miles to walk around the big island. And I started off in the southeast province, which is or district, which is the Puna district. There's a town there called Hilo. It's kind of,
It's all breaking up. I can't
and
hear
then
you.
you have Kona.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not getting a lot of this. It's all choppy.
All right. Can we pause,
Mm-hmm.
or can we? Let me try something, because let me try something.
Are you gonna log off? Oh, okay.
Let me try something, because let me try something. I'll be
Okay.
right back. No, just give me a sec. Okay, let's test for a second.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Sounding better so far.
Okay. Okay, let's just give it a second here. And is it okay?
Yeah, so far it's better.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to start recording again. And you were talking about the region in Puna. And then I couldn't tell where you were saying you were. Okay, go.
Okay, so I started off. There's Hilo on the east side, Kona on the west side, and I started off walking from Hilo and to just walk around the whole island, and I was very ambitious, and so I walked through the Volcano National Park. I got there, I think, on day one, and then I went down to like Turtle Beach in the south, and so I did like 55 miles in the first 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that was like back-to-back marathons, and then I collapsed on the beach, and then I was so like muscle seizures, I couldn't even move or walk for a few days. And so I decided to take it a little bit easier from then on out. So I spaced the rest of it out, and ultimately it took me it was about 6 months before I completed the whole thing. And I had all kinds of adventures along the way. But the very last segment of it, so I'm coming back down because I'd gone clockwise around the big island. And so there was the last 20, 25 miles on the east side of the island. And up until that point, none of walking had I actually did I get rained on. Now, the east side of the island is the rainy side. And so there was this day, and I did I think it was 11 miles that day. And I typically tried to keep it to about maybe 8.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd done 11 miles and in the rain. And by the time I hit my target campsite and I rolled in there, it was already dark, and I'm soaking wet. And I get to this campsite, and there's a pavilion there, or there's actually a few pavilions. So I went to this pavilion, and then I'm trying to find firewood, but everything is just soaked. I scrounge what I can, and then I don't have sufficient dry tinder. I'm soaked, and so I I'm struggling. I can't even make a fire, and um um it was kind of a point of being miserable. And all I had to eat that night was I had an avocado in
Mm.
my pack, and that was going to be my dinner. And so I'm there, and I'm still trying to sort out my situation, and feeling a bit sorry for myself, to be honest. And we all have those moments. And out of the darkness, all of a sudden, this figure appears, and um, and I hear this voice says, "Hey, bro, you want a plate?" And I'm like, "What?" He says, "Hey, you want a plate?" And that's kind of a Hawaiian thing. Is they say, "Do you want a plate?" It's like that's just how they say it. And I I look, and I see this young man, maybe in his 30s, and he's holding this steaming hot plate of rice and bacon wrapped asparagus and red dogs, which are like hot dogs. And he just holds it out to me, and he says, "Dude, you want this plate?" And I'm like, "Wow." I said, "Yeah." And I said, I have nothing to trade you for it." And he says, "Oh, he says, and nothing is needed." And he just hands it to me. And I mean, tears are like welling up in my eyes. And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, what a blessing." And then I kind of looked across the way. There was adjacent pavilion, and it looked like I could see some other people moving kind of around a fire over there, which, presumably his family. And but I hadn't even seen them before that. And then there it is, and there's a steaming hot plate of food, and then the, and then a few minutes later, they all packed up and left with a fire burning. And I went over to that pavilion, and there was a stack of firewood there, and I had my hot meal after this 11-mile walk in the rain. And Kara,
Mm-hmm.
I've never tasted like a hot dog that was so good. That meal itself, the experience of it was so exquisite that that food tasted. It was like as I say, it was one of the top 3 meals I've ever
Mm-hmm.
tasted in my life.
Wow.
And yeah, and so that's when we talked about doing this episode, and it's like, okay, well, can you think of a time, what times in your life that you might have been really, really blessed? And so anyways, that's just one that, yeah, I might have shared it before, but it just keeps going to the top, up to the top of the heap.
Yeah.
Because I remember how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
And that, mm, And that's such a beautiful thing that that we have at our disposal when we're looking at it's blessing somebody is going to create, a good blessing creates this vibrational memory that lasts, a lifetime and eternity.
Mm.
And so I love Christmas time. I just love the notion of and the puzzle of trying to figure out how to bless the ones I love with something that's going to last for eternity.
Oh, wow. I love that.
And the gift itself, right? Of course, that plate of food, that didn't last very long, right?
Yeah.
No, it didn't last, but of course, the memory and the feeling and the experience, that lasts forever.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, because every time, like something presented for me last night that I've shared with you already today, but one of the kind of revelations that I experienced was how we store everything in this being. And so when we have a memory like that, it has a place within the fabric of our being, and it holds that resonance. And so when we go back to that, then we get to access not only the memory, but also that vibration and that frequency that gets to work its way work its way through us all over again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we've talked about this before too, what we call state dependent memory. So similar vibrational type memories are gathered or grouped together within our own energy field. And so yeah, and so when we're blessed, we have a tendency or the natural tendency of feeling blessed in one moment can quickly expand to us just feeling blessed at large, or blessed, in life, blessed to be here. And so, like, even in this instance where it was hard, it was a hard day and I was soaking wet and all that sort of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in that moment of being blessed, I forgot about my misery.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wrapped up in this, in just feeling blessed, that of is the divine orchestration of that goes so much deeper, that hits this chord inside that says I matter
Mm-hmm.
to the universe, that that God is watching out for me, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, that is like, wow, okay. And the only thing that's really not, not the only thing, but what's really hard about hardship is when we feel like we're alone and there's no one has our back. No one's
Mm-hmm.
watching out for us.
Yeah.
And then when we're, and the power of a blessing is to just cut through that and say, no, that's false. That's not true. And the real truth is that you're beloved, child of God, and we are looked after.
Mm. That's beautiful. And it's interesting that you closed it with that, because I've been thinking of, is there anything that I want to share, as we brought this topic to light for the season. And the one that keeps coming back to me is more around protection that I received. And so it doesn't have like this beautiful bow at the end of it necessarily, where like I received something amazing and kind of miraculous, like what you experienced. But the fact that because I was kind of like, maybe I just won't offer anything was kind of where I was going with it, because my story didn't really match. But the way that you've closed that out, I'm like, okay, there's the lead in. So so may I host, Michael?
Yes.
Okay. So the thing that comes to mind with this is kind of like I say, it's a protection thing that came through. So this was when my daughter, who is now 11, was a newborn, or a small infant. And I had taken her down to downtown Indianapolis to meet my mom for lunch. And I had parked kind of on this main, like a regular street, done like street parking. And it was a pretty like kind of busy area, but not like a shady area. And we went and had lunch. And then on the way back, I wanted to feed Layla before the road trip. And so I put her car seat in I had a minivan at the time. So I'm like putting her in the thing. And then the diaper bag is kind of underneath her, like between the passenger seat and it's just on the floor there, right behind the passenger seat. And I'm getting her out of her little car seat. So I'm unbuckling. It just takes a couple of minutes to sort of shuffle everything around. And so I pick her up and I turn around, and there is a man who is walking away from me and the van and the baby. And I'm like, and it was so bizarre, because it was as though he had been walking down the sidewalk and then he came off of the sidewalk. So if you imagine like all these meters, like parking meters by where you park. So he had come off the sidewalk and he was like so close that he's like by the parking meters, like, on my side of them. And he just like was continuing to move on, and then he like walked past my van essentially and then got back up on the sidewalk. So it was like really peculiar. Like, why would he intentionally come off the sidewalk that way, get super close to me, and then just as quickly get back on the sidewalk? It was like one fluid motion, but he was like very surely approaching me, but I didn't see it until he was already walking away. But if you can imagine, I've got this tiny baby that I turn around thinking I'm going to go, get in the passenger seat and feed her. I had no expectation that there was a person that was going to be there like that close, and like really unnecessarily close for a stranger in that situation. And so my mind was quickly like, what in the world was that? And so I just ended up getting in the car, and I'm kind of processing, and I'm thinking, why was he so close? And I'm like, there's no benign reason that he got that close. And because I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but it's just like to come right up on a stranger like that, there's no need to do that. He went out of his way to get into my personal space. And I'm like, I wonder if he was going to go for my bag, because I think I was standing like kind of right there was probably a little gap there where he could have gotten the bag, but I don't know. I mean, I was so puzzled as to why he didn't just grab it. He was so close and I didn't see him until he was already starting to walk away. And the more I sat with it, the more I was like, what made him keep moving? What made him change his mind in that last second? Because it was a last second change of plans for him. And I can't explain it. I have no, and this was like years before any sort of real awakening was happening within me. So I wasn't very connected with my higher self or my divine team or anything at that time. So it was just a mystery for me. And I was like, I don't know what kept me from getting robbed or hurt I mean, at the time I was kind of like, maybe just he didn't realize I had a baby there. And then when I turned around with the baby, he was like, oh, I'm not, oops, he saw me differently. But as time has gone on, I'm like, there's something very mysterious there in terms of protection of that. Like, we're talking like moment by moment by moment, something changed in a split second that went from danger or some type of encroachment to safety. And that was, it was confusing. And, but I really felt very protected. I mean, in that moment, it was like, wow, something was looking out for me there because I was totally vulnerable and I had no idea. I mean, I was focused on Layla and getting her fed and getting home. And I felt safe. It was daytime. I was by a government building. I remember I was parked right outside of a government building. So I just felt like, there are lots of people around and didn't even think about my own safety or protection or anything. And it wasn't until I was kind of processing like that I really felt like, wow, I was very vulnerable and something was watching out for me.
Did you say that happened? Was that in Italy that happened, or?
No, that was here.
That was here.
Downtown Indianapolis. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I had something similar happen to me in Paris, I think. And I was at the train station, and I was just out in the outside the train station. I was on the phone, on my cell phone, and I had my carry-on bag that had everything, everything, laptop, everything. And I had I spent years as the road warrior, so I had I had it all dialed in, but everything was in there. And I just was looking out over the city. I just wasn't paying attention, and that bag was sitting right behind me. And then something just made me all of a sudden turn around. And as soon as I did, then some guy had been walking by, and he had literally picked up the bag. He just started to pick up the bag when I turned around, and he just immediately dropped it and kept walking. And so there's a certain class or category of your basic kind of a pickpockets that they will make passes at people, and they know it's where there's like a little window where somebody's attention is totally distracted, and he might even seen that you were with your baby, so you weren't going to be paying attention, and it was just going to come through and sweep and grab that bag, and you wouldn't have never known. I mean, or you would have, and all of a sudden it's gone. Mm-hmm. And but thankfully something cued in for you to shift your awareness and avert, that situation happening.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess that's that's a different kind of a blessing, but it certainly is a blessing. Uh, we have the blessings where we're presented with something,
Yeah.
and then there's the blessing where we avoided
Yeah.
something, right? Where you're like, whoa, that would have been, that would have been a
Yeah.
disaster, and it didn't happen. And then we can just sit there and we feel that sense of being protected or looked after, and all of a sudden we're grateful for
Mhm.
what we have that wasn't taken from us.
Right.
Right? What a beautiful feeling that is.
Absolutely.
And I mean, certainly holiday season, Thanksgiving to Christmas is, and I love that, it's the kind of the 1-2 punch of these two holidays where we're expressing our gratitude, it, and then it kind of, then we have this opportunity that follows it up to kind of show it. So we're first acknowledging how we're grateful in our life, and then um having the opportunity then to bless those that we're grateful for. It's a beautiful time of year. One of my it's one of my favorite times of year.
Yeah.
It really
You're so
is. I
unique
mean,
that way.
I know it must just be me, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That's what's interesting too about these like cultural gateways, because we've talked about this a number of times on the podcast about how there are kind of these gateways. And I know when I was first getting familiar with what we even mean by a gateway, it seemed very like esoteric, like, well, maybe you feel this influx of energy, or maybe you feel different, but this time of year is different. Like any lay person can feel that difference, as like the decorations are out, we get time off of work usually, we're spending
Mm-hmm.
time with family, we're disrupting that day-to-day
Mm-hmm.
mundane kind of that cycle of what regular life is, and we're injecting something that's new and different, even if it's similar year to year, as far as maybe you put the same decorations out always, but it's always this like infusion and injection of this different kind of atmosphere. And so that's one way that even if we don't feel like we are sensitive to energy shifts, that's accessible to anybody. Like just notice, like it's this time of year is just different than other times of year, and notice how that makes you feel inside as you attune to this different energy that's around, this different kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's
And
conducive to gratitude and things
it,
like that.
it it is, and people also do things at this time of year that they might not do at any other time of year. And uh, uh, beyond so-called just giving gifts to loved ones. Of course, there's that focus or whatnot, but we talk about this like holiday spirit, and of course, there's a plethora of movies made about this kind of stuff of the spirit of Christmas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how it inspires people to do things for strangers, for to to be somebody else's angel to in that, and just bless somebody randomly,
Mm-hmm.
or not so randomly, and what a wonderful opportunity. And of course, this opportunity is available to us at any time of year. But it tends to happen more frequently right around Christmas, and it could be that, it's part of maybe that state dependent thing. Everybody's in the spirit of giving, and then they're just prompted to bless a homeless person, or reach out. And there's so many kids, of course, in this world, and that's one of the sweetest things to see. And occasionally the news outlets carry stories of Christmas coming to to children that wouldn't have a so-called Christmas without the intervention of those strangers, really. And this is what is personally, and through my own awakenings and initiations, and this experience of multiple realms, and then we look into this particular realm that contains within it all of the archetypes. And you have your gods and goddesses and heroes of old, and that exist within this archetype realm, and Santa is amongst those. And so when it's kind of interesting that when we're as a child, right, Santa is real. Oh, for sure he's real. I know, because I set out the milk and cookies and they were gone in the morning. So so definitely, there's Santa came, because Santa likes milk and cookies.
Right.
And so, and then there was presents, and they said from Santa. Yeah. So
there's your proof.
That's legit. And then, okay, if anybody has any small children that are listening to this podcast, you can cover their ears right now. And then, of course, we learn that, it's our folks behind it. And it's like somewhat of a letdown. And then it takes many years later to then discover that no, there's a spiritual component to this, where the spirit of Santa is actually very, very real. And within this realm of archetypes, it is, and it's real. It's just like what we might call multidimensional or extra-dimensional, or it is absolutely something that's very, very real, even if it's not so-called seen. And so, and then all of a sudden, Santa becomes very, very real again. And I love this, this real and then not real, and then coming back to it. And then there's like inside of me, the kid inside just goes, yippee, it's real, in a slightly different way. And, but this is fundamental. And to talking about like miracles and blessings, and to bestow or to be a part of this whole process, the real joy in it comes from tapping into this spiritual component. So that if if you decide to bless some kind of stranger, it's not like just a physical world kind of thing where you're solving somebody's problem or fixing something. You're part of a spiritual flow of life touching itself in this non-physical way that exceeds or cannot be processed by the logical rational mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, and then for all participants, the giver and the receiver, it becomes something greater. It becomes, bam, it's a blessing, it's a miracle. And so I love this opportunity. I love the opportunity no matter what time of year, but I just love that it's so front and center at this time, and that we actually, as a culture, we do at least take this kind of month of December to make this more of our focus. And that's good. That's a good thing for us to actually tap into this spiritual dynamic, this spiritual presence, and then benefit. Everyone benefits from it.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Michael. Thank you for sharing your story and your wisdom and infusing some more joy into our season. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Wishing many blessings and miracles to everyone that's listening, and may they be bestowed upon you, and may you have the privilege and the honor of bestowing them on those around you as well, because there is joy. As they say, joy shared is doubled.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. And I look forward to the next meditation conversation. Yay!
Yay!